What's up? It's Sean with Boom Reactive, and I wanted to give my 3 favorite tips on creating captivating footage. I shoot a lot, and I shoot a lot of B-roll, and with interviews and things like that, there's a lot of rules that you need to abide by to really avoid distracting your audience or creating some unease in the frame. But when it comes to B-roll and when it comes to filming things that are more part of a story, you've got a lot more flexibility to be creative. And so I wanted to go over my 3 favorite tips of how to shoot footage that looks cooler, that's more compelling, that's more fun to watch. Tip number 1 is with your B-roll, make sure that you don't shoot at eye level or that you don't shoot everything at eye level. That's what makes footage really boring, because as humans, that's what we see. We see the world at eye level and we're used to that perspective. And so when you make an Instagram video or when you make a video for Facebook or something like that, and you stand in some public place with your phone held up right in front of your face, it's boring. That's the same thing we've all seen. What makes stuff different and compelling is when you switch the height of the camera, when you shoot from high up with the drone, when you get real low to the ground, when you find angles that you don't get to see if you stand around walking at normal height and shooting at eye level. So here's some stuff that I'm shooting at eye level. You can see it's sort of what you would expect. It looks like your mom's Instagram videos. But when we start to shoot from lower angles and from behind things and let things cover the frame a little bit, it changes the whole feel of the piece and it adds some unique point of view, some unique perspective that isn't there otherwise. One of my favorite terms is the term dirty frame, and a dirty frame versus a clean frame. And a dirty frame is when you've got something blocking your frame. And so when you're shooting from behind a plant, behind a tree, behind something, when you've got something in the foreground that's blocking the main part of what you're trying to show in the background, that goes a long way to make something more unique, because again, that's not how we normally see it. I credit a lot of that first tip. I think Devin Graham put it really concisely in a video he made a couple years ago that I really liked. The second tip is something that I think was from Edelkrone's website of the reason why, and a lot of people have said this tip, but move your camera from side to side. And the reason behind this is because, again, when we're looking at something with our naked eyes, we have 2 eyes, and so that's how we have depth. And if the camera stays still, we have 0 depth. But when the camera moves just a little bit, you start to see what planes of distance are in play, and you get that sense of depth for where someone is. And so when you're shooting B-roll, if you slide that camera from left to right, even just a little bit, it doesn't have to be drastic, doesn't have to be crazy, but just that little bit of motion, especially again if we have a dirty frame and we can see the difference in speed between what's moving in the foreground and in the background, that goes such a long way to making a really cool looking shot. We're switching arms because this thing's heavy. My third tip, in spite of the first 2 being about motion and perspective, is to not be afraid of your tripod. Or if you didn't bring a tripod with you, like I didn't, use flat surfaces, use ledges, and just let the camera be still and the motion of the frame tell the story, because there's a lot that's happening, and sometimes you can distract from that by moving the camera too much. And so even if you're standing still and holding the camera, there's a little bit of emotion that gets added by your own handshake, but just letting a frame sit and be perfectly still gives a really clean, clear indication of what's happening, and it takes all the motion out of the story and just lets the scene tell its own story. So those are my 3 tips for today on making cooler looking footage. If you've got any questions, any ideas, or whatever, throw them in the comments, and if you like this video, consider subscribing, because I liked making it, and it's always fun to get another subscriber.